It's that time of the year when Christmas trees are taken out and we reflect on our lives. Retro video game consoles are taken down from attics and old classics are fired up. And if you're European, you're reminded by just how awful PS1 game cases were. If you're American, you will not relate. Your PS1 game cases came in the same cases that a music CD would. But here in Europe, ours came in funky game cases made from the most fragile plastic going. The working theory is a thick multilingual game booklet was supposed to keep the plastic in shape. However, most publishers in Europe made different game boxes for different languages. Check out this copy of Tomb Raider 3 I picked up from my local CX a few days ago. The front case is so cracked that it's practically a hazard for cutting yourself. Now, I paid €12 for my copy and it fully works. It even has the game booklet. Go to my local marketplace and you'll see resellers trying to get €23 for their version of Tomb Raider 3. That same seller selling another piece of inventory for €28. Another person is trying to sell their copy for €45. In all scenarios, including my €12 copy from CX, they're all the same game. The difference is in the condition of the front plastic. Plastic so poorly constructed and made, it's not a question of if it's going to fail, it's a question of when it's going to crack. Now, I understand that for some, game collecting isn't actually about the value of a game, it's about aesthetics. I don't think you should be participating in paying more money for cheap plastic either, but I would still like to fix up the presentation of the PS1 games I currently own. Truthfully, I don't collect PS1 games. I grew up in the PS2 generation. These Tomb Raider games, I grew up playing them on a PS2, and that's kind of where my retro gaming nostalgia begins. So then I had an idea that some of you will think is genius, and an idea that others will probably think is so horrible it'll land me on the front page of the game collecting subreddit. The idea is pretty simple. Why don't I get my PS1 games and put them in far more durable DVD boxes? Believe it or not, in Europe there's a precedent for PS1 games in DVD boxes. Hideo Kojima did a re-release of Metal Gear Solid as a collection and put his in a DVD box, and in Australia, another PAL region, they released a limited edition version of Tomb Raider the Trilogy where they put those games in DVD boxes. Funny enough, for a limited edition trilogy set, they were actually using the crappy platinum DVDs. There was nothing collectors about them. This was just a local distributor trying to sell off remaining inventory and charge a premium for it. Now, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. No custom DVD covers that scream graphic design is my passion. While I applaud the efforts of the community over at the Cover Project, if you browse PS1 games and look at custom DVD covers, you're going to raise an eyebrow at most of them. I want these to look really good, so I'm going to have to make them from scratch. Fortunately for me, a user on DeviantArt, Sidious000, made PS2 PAL templates that are so bang on the money. Once I saw them, I knew straight away that was the base to work off of. Coffee in the pot, Photoshop open and loaded, it's time to get designing. I'm going to create custom DVD cases for my copies of Tomb Raider and Final Fantasy VIII. Creating covers for Tomb Raider were considered easy because the game released on both PlayStation and PC and by the same publisher, so for both platforms they share the same graphic design philosophy. On the back cover, I needed to figure out a template or format so all my games were uniform visually. The PS1 game covers will share the same bottom footer as the PS2 covers, but with unique icons of PS1 games like memory card requirements and how many players a game is. And this is fully modular so the text can be edited for each game's needs. In Europe, the age rating for a game was also typically on the back of PS1 games. That was moved to the front for PS2, but to keep it era specific, I decided to put the age rating in the back on this footer. The other benefit of this was that when it came to the front cover, I never had to worry about publisher logos or anything else being covered by an age rating. This meant sourcing accurate, high quality game renders easier. So it is accurate to PS1 game boxes, and if you want to create your own game boxes at home, it'll save you a big graphic design headache. Thankfully, a fan artist recreated the Tomb Raider covers one-to-one for both PlayStation and PC big boxes, so I was easily able to use the PC big box version. As for the back cover, I was going to use the PC version, which has a more similar shape to my DVD covers. If you can't find a high quality PC back cover picture for your game, a great tip is to go to eBay and find a high quality image of the back cover on there, and using perspective warping in Photoshop, straighten it out. You're looking for a high quality photograph that doesn't have shine on it from the flash of a camera, and obviously the image itself is sharp. Defects on the game box can be removed with Photoshop Content Aware. For those of you unfamiliar with Photoshop, Content Aware is not generative AI. Content Aware has been around since 2012. Now, the PC version of the back cover had reviews from PC magazines, which doesn't make sense on a PlayStation game, so I quickly got rid of those too. Once you make a game cover, making the next one is much easier, especially if it's a sequel to a game franchise. The first real hurdle I ran into was with the last PS1 Tomb Raider game Chronicles, because in Europe they stopped big boxes and moved to regular DVD cases for PC. The back DVD case of Chronicles was not fit for purpose, so I had to use the PlayStation rear cover. I had to stretch the image as much as possible that I would get away with before I looked off, and I had to cross my fingers and hope that Content Aware could fill the rest. The back cover scan had weird artifacts on the logo, so I removed the original and put in a fresh one from Google that was colour accurate and sharp. After I finished my Tomb Raider covers, it was time to go on to Final Fantasy VIII. Now, Final Fantasy VIII came on 4 discs, so I had the novel idea to use a thick DVD case. You can get standard sized DVD cases that can hold 4 discs, but if you still have your game booklet, you want a thick sized DVD case that can hold your booklet. In my attic, I found the perfect donor case. The launched 4 CD version of The Sims 2. It can hold 4 CDs and a thick game booklet. Now, inside this game box, the CD was actually cracked for disc 1, and I've been really enjoying the re-release of The Sims 2 on Steam. So CDs frisbeed into the bin and the slipcase taken out. I had to make new graphics for multi-CD games, and of course making sure the legal text in the footer is changed for every cover. If making a Tomb Raider cover is considered easy difficulty, then making a Final Fantasy cover is considered medium difficulty. Why? Because in Europe there's different publishers. Square published the PlayStation version, but for PC, Eidos published that, and that means that the graphic design on the front and back is radically different. Now, since Final Fantasy is a franchise that carries over into PS2 with Final Fantasy X, I wanted my graphics of this to match up with the PS2 entries. So if you wanted to do this with your own collection, you'd have a visual parity. And I want these covers to look good and accurate, so I was going to have to rebuild the back cover from scratch. The PS1 scans aren't the right aspect ratio, and none of the scans I found were high quality. Luckily for me, graphic design was in its infancy in the PS1 era, so Squaresoft had an affinity for the Arial font. Moby Games is a great resource for finding imagery, but most importantly, having a familiarity with the game case you're creating is very useful, because if you can't find the proper image on Google, you can go to YouTube and know what moment to look for in the game before taking a screen grab. Now it's time to paste in the same render of Squall and lower the transparency, getting it to match up with the original. Where I'm going to have to take creative liberty with is the layout of the game design and just make really good choices that I think look good. Now that my covers are designed, it's time to test them. The Photoshop template is to scale, so in Photoshop, moving in there and making sure margins are removed and the page is filled, it should print out properly. For Final Fantasy VIII, because I'm using a thicker case, I need a thicker spine. I initially assumed 25mm extra because that's what I physically measured and I thought would be enough. But because the spine is bigger, visually the curve from the front to the spine and the spine to the back is bigger. So I actually needed my spine to be about 30mm extra. Now you might try printing these properly at home, and I was naive enough I even went and bought semi-gloss paper from my local print shop. Don't do it, the results are horrible. Instead, grab a USB thumb drive and your car keys, or a bus pass, and it's time to journey to your local printer shop. The printers in your print shop are going to be far better quality than any printer you can buy for domestic use at home. I wish I could say it was all smooth sailing, but a printer is still a printer. The issue I had is at home I use a Mac and Photoshop, and at my local printer shop all they had was Windows 10, the Windows File Explorer, and GIMP, neither of which I knew how to use properly. My initial prints did not turn out right, they were scaled too big. Fortunately for me, my local printer shop was very kind and they did not charge me for the f***ups. The reality is, in your local printer shop, it's probably going to be a game of trial and error, so be sure to bring your properly fitting test prints from home just so you have something to measure against in the shop. After filing the Windows Explorer, I eventually came across an advanced control panel for the printer, and using trial and error I was able to change the scale for each print, so I printed them out at different scales and measured them up against my test print I did at home that I knew properly fitted. For the standard DVD cases, that was about 95% to scale, and for the extra thick Final Fantasy VIII case, 96%. These settings will most likely be different at your local printer store, so be sure to go during a quiet time of day and expect to be there for about an hour. Thankfully, the people working in my local printer store were amazing and excellent at using a cutting board. Soon enough, my DVD cases were coming to life. And here they are. I am really happy with how they turned out. This is a result that's either going to really impress you, or you're going to think it looks so horrible it's going to put me on the front cover of the game collecting subreddit. But in my opinion, I think this looks far better than those PAL cracked PS1 game cases we have here. Even the manager working in the print shop saw what I was doing and clocked it was because the PAL PS1 cases were truly awful. For him, it was even like going down memory lane. My favourite thing is with a franchise like Tomb Raider, because it does continue into the PS2 era, in my opinion I actually think they visually match up, like it looks like a direct continuation. What I was going for was that if Sony were making PS1 games back in the day and did them in DVD boxes, this is what they'd look like. Now, something I didn't show you yet is I actually made additional covers. This is Final Fantasy VIII, but I also made versions for Final Fantasy VII and IX. I printed them on standard DVD sizes because I don't have enough thick cases, but there will be a download for all three in either standard or thick sizes, and I think this came together really well. Modern printers are far more detailed than the ones Sony used 30 years ago for manufacturing, so for those who used to look at the in-game pictures at the back, there are far more sharper screenshots. And another set of games I wanted to have a go at is Tekken. I actually don't have any PS1 Tekken games left, but I had Photoshop, and at only 40 cents a print, €1.20 worth of curiosity. The Tekken covers were the hardest to make, as high quality renders were hard to find. Thank you, Tekken Fandom Wiki, and the games only ever came out on PS1. There was a lot of use of Photoshop content aware when it came to extending Jin's chest for Tekken 3, but I'm really happy with the results. My favourite cover is actually for Tekken 2, as the purple is just visually really pleasing. I forgot that in the back of Tekken 2 in Europe, rather than putting it in English or European languages, they just gave us Japanese text and called it a day. If you want to download these covers, you can find them on DeviantArt. I did also upload them to the cover project, but I must admit, after uploading, I made several revisions to most of the game boxes. So if you want the latest ones, the ones I printed out, head on over to that DeviantArt account and download them. If you plan on doing this yourself, I think for consistency, just use plain black DVD covers. Do not use the PlayStation 2 game boxes with the memory card holders and the Sony steel stickers. I designed the template to remove as much friction as possible, siloing age ratings and legal to the footer, so if you're not a graphic designer, you can just drag and drop images for the front and back. My game cases contain the same quirks as the PS1 covers, like Tekken 3 being the only one to have a copyright symbol on the spine. You have to recreate the imperfections to make it look authentic. Now, if you're a game collector, you might be feeling, doesn't it feel wrong that these aren't real? I beg to differ. First off, the games themselves are real, they're not pirated, and the books are real. And what is authentic? Look at my PlayStation 2 copy of Tomb Raider Anniversary. GameStop sold me the shelf box with no Sony seal or even a barcode. This is still real and authentic. I wanted a solution that would let me store my PS1, PS2, Xbox, Xbox 360 and Wii games uniformly. The PS1 was the odd one out, the rest are in standard DVD size cases, and I also didn't want to have to handle my PS1 cases like an Hermes handbag. Those PS1 game boxes I've been showing you all throughout the video, those front covers, I did them all at the printer shop too. 12.3cm wide by 12.5cm tall, and I had to scale that to 106%. I even have my real insert for Tomb Raider 4, but I just had a massive ick that Ida's hard-burned a review quote on it. It looks so much better without the quote. So what's real? If you are a game collector and you're very anal, if not OCD when it comes about having everything being authentic, you're gonna have to hone your sense of touch, because when you're shopping at a retro game market, that will be the only way to authenticate if those inserts were from the factory and not a reprint. They do feel different. And this one here, this is a factory insert from 30 years ago, but like it looks the same as the one I just reprinted today. But don't worry, PS1 hardcore fans, I am not throwing those cracked boxes out. I actually found some bubble wrapping, so I'm going to wrap them up and store them away for archaeologists to unearth 300 years from now. But if you're like me and you collect games to actually play them, not just own them, you're now going to have PS1 games that can be stored in covers that aren't more fragile than porcelain. If you enjoyed the video and like my game cases, do let me know in the comments down below. I will not be taking commission, you will have to make your own Spyro and Crash Bandicoot game cases yourself. If you do have a spare disc one of Final Fantasy VIII though, do send it to me. But other than that, I hope you're keeping safe and well. Bye.